Okay, Bereshus Tamar Asra, Rav Palik. Vayechi Yaakov. There's a famous Balaturim. The Balaturim says that the gematria of Vayechi, let's figure it out. Vav is 6, Yud is 10, that's 16, Ches is 8, that's 24, and Yud is 10 is 34. Says the Balaturim, the Iker Chaim, the Iker life of Yaakov was the 17 years that he lived with Yosef until Yosef was sold. He was sold at 17 years of age. So the 17 years that he lived with Yosef, and the 17 years that he lived together with Yosef down in Mitzrayim, because he came down to Mitzrayim, and at 100, he came down and he lived another 17 years in Egypt together with Yosef. So that's a total of 34 years. Vayechi is B'gematria 34. This Balaturim always troubled me very greatly. First of all, in the 17 years that Yosef was with him, Yaakov suffered dreadfully. During those years, Dinah was violated. During those years, both Rachel and Leah died. 2 wives died. It's 2 main wives. Rachel died in her 30s, at 36, and Leah died either at 43 or 44, the Seder HaDaira says. It's a gewaltige word from Rav David Feinstein. Rav David Feinstein said that if Leah would have been alive, there would have been no Mechiras Yosef. She would have had such an influence on her children that there would be no Mechiras Yosef, as Rav David Feinstein said. How could you say that in the 17 years that Yosef HaTzadik was with Yaakov, those were the Ikar years of his life, such terrible things happened? On the other hand, it's not counting 14 years that must have been heaven on earth. What 14 years? The 14 years he learned in Sheva. Everybody looks back and says, oh, the yeshiva years, from the best years of their life, they sat and learned without any disturbance. How? Why don't you count those 14 years? Those 14 years he was untroubled, unbothered. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you an interesting thing. What propelled him to go into yeshiva of Shem Ve'eva? We know that it says, Ki b'makli avarti es hayarden hazeh. With my staff, I passed through this Yarden. And Chazal tell us, only thing he had was his staff. Because boy, Eliphaz v'lokach hakol. Eliphaz came, he wanted to kill him, but since he grew up on the lap of Yitzchak, he couldn't kill Yaakov. So Yaakov said, but Eliphaz learned about Kibbud Avim from Esav. That was Esav's big thing. So Yaakov told him, take everything from me, even my clothing, and ani chashiv kames. So Yaakov had nothing. Why did that happen to Yaakov? Here he had to get married, and he comes penniless. And he comes penniless to a house where money is everything. Lavan's house, because of that he had to work all those years. Why did Hashem do that? You have to understand, because for the 14 years that he was going to learn in Shem Ve'eva, money was only detrimental to him. And when money is detrimental to a person, Hashem says, what do you need the money? Imagine if Yaakov would have servants and flocks. He would have to worry about it. How could he learn untroubled for 14 years? He have to worry about his servants. Did they get paid? Did they get fed? The flock, is the flock eating in other people's fields? We find this theme many times. For example, Rabbi Akiva, when he raised the 24,000 Talmidim, he was penniless. Later on, he inherited the wealth of Kalba Savua, and he married Ishtay Shaltunis Rufus, and the Gemara tells us he found a mast of a boat full with money. He became very wealthy. But when he was learning and having the 24,000 Talmidim, he was penniless. He had to pick straw out of Rachel's hair. And later on, he was able to buy her the famous Yerushalayim Shel Zav. The decoration on her forehead was worth a lot of money. But why? Because when he was in yeshiva, it wouldn't be good for him to have all that money. You know who else we find this by? We find this by Moshe Rabbeinu. The only poor man in the Midbar was Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody else had 70 donkeys full of stuff. The Gemara tells us Moshe Rabbeinu became rich mipsayla shaluchos, from the residue of the luchos. When he made the second luchos was solid sapphire, and Hashem said you could keep the residue. That's how he became rich. Why does he have to tell us that? That's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Nobody else is going to have psayla shaluchos. Why does he have to tell us how Moshe Rabbeinu made his money? Yeah, first of all, the answer is Moshe Rabbeinu didn't collect tuition. If he took tuition, he would be a very wealthy man. He taught 600,000 men and all the women. It's telling us he didn't take tuition. But also it's telling us because in the formative years of Moshe Rabbeinu, money wouldn't have been good for him. Hashem doesn't give money when it's not good for a person. So, again, we come back to this mysterious Balaturim. Vayechi is Gematria 34. Those are the main years. First of all, how do you count the 17 years with Yosef? And how do you not count the 14 years of Shem V'Ever? And I always felt that you can never count it full Chayim when a person is not married. In Shem V'Ever, he wasn't married. And when you're not married, you're only a half. You're only a palga. That's why when we toast people, if you go especially to a Chassidish Simcha, somebody takes the Brumfen and he goes l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Why does he say l'chaim? He should say l'chaim. Yeah, I'm getting them thirsty, right? Should really provide the schnapps if I'm going to say this word, right? Why don't we say l'chai? Life, to life. That's by the goyim, to life. But we say l'chai. So there's two main terutzim to this question. The first teretz is that we're wishing people olam hazeh and olam haba. Like it says in today's daf, shtei shulchanos. We're wishing people shtei shulchanos. This world and the next world. But it's also because we're wishing people that they should have that unit, chayim, a husband and a wife. That's a unit. And you can't count the 14 years in Shem V'Ever because Yaakov was alone. You'll say, what about in Mitzrayim? In Mitzrayim, Yaakov was still living with Bilhah. Bilhah outlived Yaakov Avinu. We know this beferish. Because the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, afterwards, somebody told Yaakov that the brothers, that your father commanded after his death, that you should be good to your brothers. Who said that? So the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says Bilhah said it. Bilhah outlived Yaakov. Bilhah was with Yaakov, he was married and was happily married to Bilhah. Bilhah was one of the Imais. She had two Shvatim. Very happy. She was the moon in Yosef's dream. Right? It says the sun and the moon. So Yaakov chided Yosef. How could it be? Your mother isn't alive. But the truth of the matter is the moon was Bilhah. Because Bilhah raised Yosef. She was like a mama to him. You have to know that it's a sad fact of life that which we have all the time we don't appreciate. We don't appreciate. A person has a wife all the time. Our wife, it's like a fixture. But the truth of the matter is it's not a chayim without a wife. It's not chayim. A wife gives life, and a wife, here's a person who's doing good in Parnasa. He has to know, he thinks he's doing good parnasa because he's very good at it. You know? Chazal say, Ein bracha metzuya b'seich beisai shel adam, ela b'shvil ishta. That's what it says. Because it says, V'Avram heitiv ba'avura. Even Avram, who's the big Amud HaChesed. So you would say he's getting everything Mida Keneged Mida because of his Chesed. Even Avram. Ein bracha metzuya b'seich beisai shel adam, ela b'shvil ishta. And that's why we know that a wife is not called a wife. A wife is called one's home. That's what it says. Ulekacha Mordechai loy levas. Now the Megillah had to be written in code because it was included in the Chronicles of Paras Amadai, and it wouldn't have been very politically correct to say that the Prime Minister of Mordechai shared the same wife as the king. It wouldn't have worked. But the Gemara tells us, Al tikrei levas ela levayis. Don't read levas ela levayis. He was married to Esther. Mordechai was married to Esther. And a wife is called one's house. Now, why is that? The simple reason is because chachmas noshim bonsa boisa. The wisdom of a woman creates a home. The aura of a home. The aura of a home. The warmth of a home. The tension or lack of it in the home is created by the wife. That's true. Whether it's the way she decorates the home, whether it's the aroma that's in the home, and most importantly, the mood that's in the home. Whether it's tense, whether it's pleasing, whether it's sweet, that's created.